Good evening, everyone. Thank you to, we're going to open our May 26, 2026 meeting. I'll begin first by acknowledging the New York Knicks are in the NBA Finals, and then we'll entertain motions.
I move that the board enter into executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 105(1)(f) to discuss matters leading to the identification of a particular student, matters relating to the employment history of a particular person, and matters leading to the appointment of a particular person.
Second.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Discussion, debate, conversation. All in favor? The motion passes. The board anticipates being back at 6:30. We will do our best to hold to that time frame, and so we'll see everyone at 6:30. We are returning from executive session. I would like to make a motion to make a couple of modifications to the agenda. One is I would move to amend the tentative agenda to add a supplement to the personnel reports. And I would additionally like to table agenda item 12.1 and 12.2 until the next board meeting. Those are both policies that we'd like to discuss at our next policy meeting. So that's what I'm moving. I'm appreciative to anyone be willing to second.
Second.
Only discussion, conversation, debate. All in favor of the modifications to the agenda? So modified. Thank you all very much. And here is the amendment to the personnel report. We will continue on with the hearing of delegates. I apologize in advance. I'm not going to be able to pronounce names, both because of my poor choice of reading glasses today, as well as I can't see them correctly. But first is Aaron. And is Aaron here?
Yeah.
Can you tell me your last name, please? Shafto. Thank you very much. Aaron, will our microphones capture a statement from back there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Okay. So I'm also in a glasses situation, so I can't see fire, but I can. So, I'm here with other district nurses today, just to kind of update the board about current concerns that we have for our basically the organization of nurses in the district. So I hope I can put into words for the other nurses in the district a brief explanation of what's going on right now. We found out recently our medical director for many years was not rehired for the coming year, and understand that there's an RFP out to replace that, which is great. However, at the moment we're feeling unsupported a little bit and feeling that we've been operating without a lead nurse, which is something that is in our contract. But we haven't currently had who provides clinical support, consistent training for new nurses, support for new nurses, that kind of thing. And so as a result of not having a lead nurse, we have been more reliant on the medical director for that clinical support. And so now I'm not knowing quite what's going to happen starting July 1st. That's one of our concerns. And with Project Innovation starting right after the holiday, and then sports registration opening in mid-July, there's a lot that's needed this summer. And so one of my questions is just, can a nurse legally and safely practice and implement the standing order that we have without the license of a medical doctor or nurse practitioner? And so that leads to our concerns surrounding the lack of a lead nurse. And so we have, discussed it within the nurses and with our supervisor. And so changes are being made, and there have been positions put out. And so there is now a position that's been released for the lead nurse, itinerant nurse position. And so, which is found supportive to us. However, the pay is the same pay. Like if it were offered to a nurse within the district, there's no additional pay for the support that nurse could be providing all the other nurses in the district. But there's a little bit of concern because currently there's no district nurses who are willing to take on the extra liability and kind of clinical duties that would require. And so if we do hire from outside the district, they would be starting at the starting wage that we all start. That's not dependent on experience, years of experience. And so would that person then feel, if they don't have school experience, is that appropriate for them to be presented nurses? And so there's concern about how that's being presented and how that would be, how that would work, and is it kind of setting up for failure? And because we had tried already. My time.
Thank you. Next is Alexis, and if you can tell me your last name as well. Thank you.
I am in the same vein and have been part of the same discussions, and I wanted to, after a couple of our colleagues spoke at the last meeting, I had the sense that there was this feeling that it was about the people in the role, and while I have enormous respect for those people, this is really about feeling safe and supported in our clinical practice so that we can feel like our students are safe and supported. And part of that is having someone who has school nurse experience, clinical training, and a role that is set up to give guidance and support and not just like an extra hand. And as you would not expect a principal to practice without somebody they can turn to for guidance when they have a principal problem, when they need help, when they want to bounce off a question, that person would have experience as a principal. They would have a deep familiarity with the resources and the kinds of situations a principal might face, and that principal can ask that person and turn to them. So you should not expect a nurse to practice without that. Without a medical supervisor and or a head nurse or lead nurse, we have some great supervisory folks, but they're not clinically trained and they're not necessarily experienced in what we experience on a day-to-day basis. And so we're supervising each other by like, hey, anybody know what to do in this situation? Which is not feel like a great way to handle questions and problems. And so what I really would just endorse is that you consider like a new and bigger, better situation that's going to cost less money, that you actually ask the people who are really deeply day-to-day involved in what that looks like and what the needs are for a medical director, and just talk to health and wellness about what supports they need, what guidance they're looking for, what we utilize the medical director and the situation, the larger COSER, all the things that the services we're using, and ask us to weigh in on those things and what we need before assuming that a bigger, better response is going to cover it.
I think it's Marie.
Yeah.
So you're
Kikuchi Murata. I feel like everything has been said. I mean, I basically feel like we have been told that we're going to get a new medical director to replace the one that we're losing, and we're going to reinstate the lead nurse that we lost several years ago. But I feel like things are not feeling equitable in terms of what we're going to pay the lead nurse. It feels like that is under discussion, and I basically came here sort of incensed, but I'm just going to leave it at that I want to make sure that we're compensated appropriately so that we get somebody who's qualified and has the experience that's needed and gets compensated. That's basically what I wanted to say. So thank you for your time and that.
Board responses.
I just want to say thank you for coming. I was personally disappointed to hear that we at ICSD hadn't signed back onto the cooperative agreement with both these. And I know that not only was the medical director someone who's been working with you all for a long time, but also had a partner who is also contributing significantly to that work. And that there's a lot of other things in that, included in that COSA, that was really beneficial to students all across our district. So appreciate you all coming and raising that, and certainly to heart hearing that a leadership role needs to understand more salary discussions between the two. And so look forward to working with the team to kind of better understand all of that and how we'll be able to kind of compensate for all of the losses that are coming from not being a part of that anymore. Thank you.
Responses.
I just want to thank the school nurses in general. I feel like you don't get enough credit for the amount of work you do. And just at my daughter's school, I mean, whenever I talk to their nurse, she's just incredibly busy, but also wonderful and amazing. So first off, much appreciation. I hope that this can go on a HR committee agenda meeting so we can discuss it further and really look at what you're talking about with concerns about pay and what to do moving forward. So Emily, are you the chair of HR?
Yeah.
Can that be put on our next committee agenda by chance? We can talk about it more in depth.
Great.
That would be next. Dr. Brown, we in an unusual
I know,
circumstance.
surprised you gave me before. Thank you. I'll start by Ms. Workman's words. Not being a part of the COSA is disappointing, but I think y'all know I and my team were part of establishing that COSA, and it was an enhancement on the services we provide. That's why we established the COSA. And it's disappointing, and I want to flush out why it's disappointing that we're not a part of it, but it'd be a part of the presentation we prepared to do briefly, because at the last, I forget what the facilities committee meeting, I promised you that we would bring some initial thoughts and we would hear from you, we would answer some of your questions, we would talk about this on tonight as part of the superintendent's report. So we do have some time, we have prepared to talk about it some, if the board is okay still with me doing that. And we can come to an HR committee meeting. But at this point, I want to make sure you hear me when I say I'm disappointed that we're not in the COSA as well. And this is an area, and Marie, you've come to a lot of these meetings talking about compensation, and I hope you've seen that we've already responded with making adjustments to compensation. So you're going to hear some of that tonight, not probably to the extent you want, but we've always heard and tried to enhance and to adjust. And I hope you hear tonight that we're doing it still, and noting that, yeah, if everything was going as we had planned, we will be a part of the COSA that we helped establish and build. But you hear some reasons tonight why we can't and why we're bringing this back in-house in the plan moving forward. But we'll do that when the superintendent's report comes, and I'll invite some folks to share some data and some history and our plans going forward.
I didn't mean to stop any other board members. Thank you. So we'll wait for the superintendent.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll continue on with our agenda, which brings us to student reps.
All right.
As many of you know, our community is currently grieving a student, our seniors. We started today with a short session in our family groups to process and point students to additional support available in the building. And we'd like to thank Dr. Brown, Mary Grover, and other district officials and support staff who are helping our community this week.
With that said, our LACS graduation is coming up pretty soon. It's June 22nd for middle schoolers, June 23rd for high schoolers. As you probably know, an LACS graduation looks a lot different from any other graduation, but that's pretty typical at this point for LACS. Both middle school and high school complete their, as it says, middle school or high school projects, be it 8th grade project or senior projects. For senior projects, I've seen it be anything from building jet engines to writing entire books to anything in between. They're really, really amazing what people can put together. After they present that before the ceremony, but after the fact comes the actual main ceremony, when rather than just walking across the stage, a staff member will give a speech on each individual specific student for the class. And they are incredibly meaningful. as both a summation of the students' time at LACS, but also them as a person, their passions, their projects, really their entire life up until this point, as a teacher has known that, or the school has known that, rather. It's a long but triumphant and joyful ending to a career as a student, at least in high school. We'd love to see any board members there for at least the project sharing, which will be, again, June 22nd, 4 p.m. for middle school, and June 23rd, 5 p.m. for high school. Thank you. We'll come back around in a second.
As we've mentioned a few times before, this past week we had our spring trips, and so that was a wonderful experience for all. And a lot of students have been quite excited and quite happy about that trip that they had last week. A personal memory of mine is climbing up the tallest spiral staircase that I have ever been on. But unfortunately, within the last, call it 20, 30 steps, right as you're feeling extra tired, they get twice as high. It was awful. Thank you.
Sure. So, as Boat failed to mention, the three of us were on Spanish trip. It's okay, don't worry. We went to Valencia, Spain, and it was incredible. It was really a lot of fun. It was a language immersion trip, so we went to school there. We went to a institute called Conversa, which I cannot recommend enough to anybody who happens to be looking for language programs in Valencia, Spain. It was really cool to be immersed and trying to use like our problem solving abilities to communicate in a different language, and then all of the extra fun stuff on the side, the swimming in the Mediterranean and visiting cathedrals, and shopping. I got this whole outfit pretty much there at their stores. Yeah, spring trips are really something, and it was a joy to take so many people out of the country for the majority of the group's first time, I think.
So
yeah.
majority first time.
Yeah, on an airplane or even out of the state. So that was really wonderful to do.
You heard about Spanish trip. I want to share a brief memory from my trip last year, which was the backpacking trip, in which I want you to picture about 40 extra pounds of gear on your back, water hanging, all the mosquitoes in the world, no bug spray, and it's also happened to be pouring rain and 45 degrees outside, and got to walk 30 miles, which sounds quite miserable, but it's one of my favorite trips, and it was one of the happiest trips I've been on. We had an amazing time. I was an older student on this trip with some younger students. I had the chance to mentor a lot of students, show them, even some students how to build a fire, how some students how to like balance your bag, make sure you can like go walk 7 miles in a day with all that weight on you, and again, pouring rain, but having to like filter water from rain puddles, which again, miserable, but I had a lot of fun doing it. I also very briefly want to throw our supports behind the school nurses initiative here. And as you know, we ask a lot of our school nurses, and anything that helps them do their job better immediately impacts students positively. So I think it's very safe to say we support any initiative to better the working environment of school nurses.
Thank you, ICS.
I don't have too much to report on right now. I'm not sure what the other reps want to talk about this meeting. I also want to acknowledge the loss our community is facing right now. Although the student was a part of LACS, they're also part of the school orchestra community. But yeah, that's very difficult, a very significant. Other than that, I just want to talk a little bit about the UE rep policy for election. We were just wondering a bit about like the appointments and how that was going to work. I also just wanted to touch on like the new polling system, and it seems to be working pretty well so far in most of the classrooms. And I also just wanted to put support out to the district nurse initiative too. Like school nurses do so much, and so much what we don't realize. from field trip forms to like a lot of different things. And it is true that you can't expect like the label nurse to cover every sort of different training. Like you need, it gets pretty specific at certain point. So
Board responses. I'll jump in. I recommend attending LACS graduation for the 17 and a half hours that it goes on record.
You know, a new record last time, about 26 hours.
Lily, the board members, policy committee received a message about the school reps slash ex officio members. We'll be discussing it again on June 2nd. The board decided at last meeting, though it's not official yet, to return to a 4 student reps at Ithaca High School and 2 student reps at LACS moving forward. The idea was there was questions and conversation amongst board members about an election process and more importantly about representation from the entire student body. So the thought was to do a dual process, that 2 of the reps would be elected through the normal process and that 2 additional reps would be selected through a process that the school will choose, not the board. And so there'll be a conversation with Ithaca High School administration. There are some thoughts and some ideas about what that could look like. It's not set, but the thought was to not move forward with electing all 4 members this year because we were looking for and having dialogue again about representation and about student voice. So I would recommend folks go back and watch the last board meeting, and then it'll be on the agenda for June 2nd for us to finalize that policy. I know it's probably, I'll leave it there. Is that a question?
A brief one. Is that selection policy affecting the LACS process?
No, LACS's policy is set in the handbook that has been created. So folks can see that as well and go from there. So the new change will actually be more at guys. And we'll communicate that in an email as well. Did I capture that right, Emily, as a policy colleague?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we do still have another policy committee meeting and are going to be discussing things. So I wouldn't say anything. Nobody said this, but anything is set in stone. So if you have strong thoughts or feelings and you want to send them over to us before that meeting, happy to hear that feedback.
it was just more so curiosity since the initial election process is like starting on Thursday for the campaign.
Yeah, the timing we've definitely butted up against.
Yeah, we're aware of how poor the timing is that works. So. We will, no, I won't. Thank you for the students for we're experiencing a loss. And I want to just leave time for us to acknowledge that. So thank you for reminding us, remembering. We will continue on with our agenda. Up next is the consent agenda, and we'll entertain motions.
I move that the board approve all consent agenda items listed in consent agenda. Consideration of accounts, students, personnel report, and minutes of previous meeting is presented.
Moved by Jacob, second. Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. The only addition would be the personnel report includes the addendum. Debate, discussion, conversation. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And that brings us to superintendent report, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Professor. Yeah, a few items tonight, if I may, including we'll finish with the update on where we are with our nurse and medical provider support. And also beginning with, it's been a tough weekend, long weekend, wasn't a holiday weekend. And my daddy always said, you learn a lot about people when things happen like this. And I didn't learn stuff. I think it was affirmed for me how special the ACS community is. the young people, the staff members. What I saw this morning was pretty special in the ways in which they came together and led and supported one another in love. And when you see that, it's hard to unsee it. And at a time like this, we needed it. And for me, without saying too much, just thank you for allowing me to be a part of a community that can love like that at a time like this. I see you. Thank you. And thanks to the board for your approval, if I can transition, your approval of the consent agenda and the items that were there. And if I may, I wish to recognize some folks who were appointed this evening. And let me begin. I hope I can see everybody. Maybe it's Zach or Dan, because I have to text them at every meeting to turn the lights up here. But at some point, can you turn the light? Thanks, Dan. I don't know, one meeting I'm going to high school and get through without me having to text them.
We have lights in this room.
I don't know. They were recently installed. That's the way it's transitioned. Karen Quill, I hope Karen's here. If you can just raise. Karen, thank you for being here. She's going to be joining us from another school district. She's going to be taking on, Marty Shaw is going to be transitioning into a new career, I hope it's retirement. And to replace her as associate principal for inclusion, we have Karen coming from another school district, and she's a stellar educator you're going to learn much more about. But tonight, I want to make sure people saw her face and she's here. So thank you for joining our team. Yeah. These next three folks are people who have been a part of our team. When I got into this work, I was told that the best administrators are always the people who are really good teachers too, first. And I've tried, and as we look for administrators, we look for folks who are good teachers first, and most importantly, and it's even more important when they've been members of the IPA, here, the Teachers Association, they've been teachers in our school district. And they've been great candidates who can matriculate through our organization. And what people may not know is when you transition to be an administrator in the school district from being a teacher, you give up your tenure rights and you give up tenure to start over. And that's a vulnerable place to be in the state. And we've had folks raise their hands and say, I want to do it. So tonight I wish to acknowledge some folks who are earning tenure as administrators in some key roles. Ms. Granger, you've started your life here in our school district, and now you're the tenured principal at Cuba Heights Elementary, doing an amazing job. Thank you for being here. 2010, when Mr. Ainsley was giving me a tour of the school district, the first place we stopped was South Hill Elementary School, and we went into Julie Humble's classroom. And at the time, I was like, wow, this is a pretty good first grade, but the kindergarten, first grade, I don't forget much. Yeah. Yeah, wow, a long time ago. And some of those young people have now graduated and are graduating college. I got it. I shouldn't say that. Anyway, Julie was an outstanding teacher here and an even better administrator. So Julie is earning tenure at Northeast Southern. Also told that the best teachers also can and should be coaches. And the first time I saw this gentleman, he was coaching lacrosse, I believe, right, Pat? And I was like, how tall is he? Anyway, that was my first question. And then I was like, once I realized how tall he was, I realized he's a pretty good coach too. And then I went into his math class, and he was an excellent math teacher. And he's been associate principal at this high school at a place, traditionally, there were a lot of administrators who came through this high school over the years. And they, so when you can find someone like a Jason Trumbull, every time I get a chance to say Jason Trumbull's name, when you can start in the classroom and then become an associate principal and then a principal, and Pat will be a principal and superintendent someday. But he's earned tenure as an associate principal. Thank you, Pat. Proud of everybody, and it's a great team we have. And as we learned this weekend, administrators and teachers, and folks don't get many days off around here, even on holiday weekends. And when that phone rings at 5:30, administrators pick it up, and they didn't have to navigate oftentimes some difficult stuff. So I see you, and I thank you for taking on a job you can choose not to. Appreciate you. And then this next item, again, as we foreshadowed at the last committee meeting, I was like Carrie Burke and Mary Grover. We prepared a few remarks, knowing that this is an ongoing conversation, but we thought we would share some information. I hope this gives some light to why I said I'm disappointed that we are not engaging in the culture again also. And, it's one thing to be disappointed, it's another thing to have a plan. So I think we're going to talk about the plan we have moving forward. So Carrie?
Yes, thank you for having us tonight and thank you for speaking and sharing what you need. We hear you, we appreciate you. We have some of the components moving forward for the 26-27 school year that's ongoing. So in 2018, we shifted the role of the supervision. I want to give a bigger picture because I think shared timelines create shared understanding. We moved away from a head nurse position to a director of health and wellness to incorporate and support both school nurses. Integrated social emotional learning were the priorities of the time. We didn't know it, that COVID would hit 6 months later. And part of our recruitment was also specialty in public health based on the feedback we were seeing. We had a really, I know it's not typical for us to use names, but I need to use names because Barb Masser from Bell Sherman is amazing school nurse, held the role of lead nurse. So the structure was a head nurse, a lead nurse, and we've moved to a director of health and wellness to work alongside the lead nurse, always having a medical director. That's really important. And so as that role has shifted and the program enhanced, and we did go to a regional model for the medical director position, we're returning and bringing that role back in-house for the 26-27 school year. And knowing when we bring that back in-house, having and reinstating the lead nurse position would be an important part of the supports that are on the nurses.
Yeah, and I want to thank the nurses who are in the room today and those who aren't, recognizing the shifts that needed to occur following our non-renewal of the COSER. A number of you have been stakeholders I've had involved conversations with about what are the structures and supports needed to be successful going forward. So this emergence of a hybrid position where the lead nurse role previously was a nurse who occupied a building room. We are moving in another direction to really provide more latitude and availability to that individual to be able to support nurses directly. So that was in direct response to the conversations I had with many of the nursing staff and feedback from the department as a whole. I'd also like to just touch on too the community partnership piece. That isn't something that's going away either. Our engagement with groups like Project Teach out of the University of Rochester, professional development from BOCES, and in-house professional development is portions of those were incorporated into the COSER, but they will continue on outside of the existence of the COSER.
And so if I could add to the hybrid position, so right now there's an itinerant nurse position. So that itinerant nurse position, there's an additional itinerant nurse position. I just want to clarify that will be the lead nurse. So it's an increase of an itinerant nurse position that the hybrid is that it will also be the lead nurse, just to clarify.
Insert something real quick because we've been in so many meetings. I want to make sure for folks who are hearing this for the first time, get this piece in. There was a grant, I think it was a New York State grant that we had access to. Was the primary reason why we moved to a COSER regional model. It was a significant amount of money. We hoped that that grant would be renewed and we would stay on the same path with the same enhancements receiving state aid. We did not receive that grant. So without the grant funds, having it done regionally would have tripled our costs going forward. So there is a resource finance component to this as well. Again, I'll say it, the reason we were in support of transitioning this to a COSER regional model was to access a state grant and the reimbursement from the aid. Without that, it's something we need to think about as far as resources and whether or not we do it. We've done this with technology. It's gone to BOCES and it's come back. As you know, it's always better to have an in-house program. But when we can leverage BOCES funds and grant funds, it's important for us to do that. And when that grant or just goes away or it's not sustainable, we come back in-house. I know you talked about it laughing, but I didn't hear it when you were describing it today.
Is this an appropriate time for questions related to this, or is this just?
Yeah, my apologies. This is the part I don't like about school board meetings or being in this role, that it is not appropriate time for questions. But I would ask the email all questions so we can find a way to make sure they get answered.
Yeah, I would welcome questions so that we can create a shared path forward. BOCES is our collaborator, our partner at this moment in time. I understand where they are with that grant and continuing. They're not able to be flexible or creative in what they're offering us. And we're continuing those conversations. Now, for immediate need, the medical director position is slated to begin July 1. So I do want to address that we do have a very robust summer program, Project Innovation, and thank the educators, principal, Jean Driscoll, Lauren Kankowski, all the staff working for that. So we don't really have a 10-month school year here. We have the number of students participate. We have close to 500 students participating there.
And I would just add, I look forward to working with the school nurses to understand and fulfill the needs that exist. We've been here before, like they've been such amazing individuals to work with during the global pandemic that we experienced. And so I'm confident that we can find a way forward to meet their needs.
With their input, I do. Your input, the school nurses' input has been really important in moving forward.
We look forward to continuing the conversation that's on the agenda. We can dig into this a bit more if there's, and we can take a few questions then I'll do one.
One, I also just want to highlight that, if I understand correctly, it's going to be on the HR agenda, which may give people more time to get information. But Jacob, I saw your hand, so.
I just had a couple of, I guess, factual questions. So I think one of the speakers said that the lead nurse position is paid the same as school-based nurse. Is that accurate?
So when the original iteration of this came around, the way it functioned was that it was a 10-month building nurse who worked in the district, and then they completed a timesheet for any hours allocated towards the scope around the lead nurse position. So they, under the terms of the EA agreement, the Employees Association agreement, which I'm not the expert on, but that was the path for recognizing the time commitment, particularly outside of hours.
That's a question I would ask board members to take a look at. That I understand the requests and appreciate your requests. I'm also interested in what the contract language says. And there are definitely addendums that can be made to that contract language as well. But just keep that in mind that we, as board members, you should also go back and read the contract language too.
Then I just have to make sure I understood what you were saying, Dr. Brown. So if I understand correctly, you said that the reason we had regional services at all was because of the grant, and in your mind, it's preferable to have those in-house. Is that correct?
In most cases, yeah. And in this case, the situation, we probably would have continued with the regional approach had the grant continued and similar costs. Again, as a program that we developed and have built over time, and it's a good one. And now we feel like we can build that in-house as well. So it's coming back.
Is there a sense of the number of hours over the traditional or typical job description that a supervisor would have?
There is. I looked at data from a 3-year period, and on average, based on what was submitted on timesheets at least, it was something to the effect of 5 to 7 hours a week. Mm-hmm.
That's also probably for like direct advising on something and not an opportunity to kind of think holistically a little bit more in a leadership role. So I think it would be interesting to think about how a leadership role on that is actually being utilized. And it's different from like a one-off call.
We could discuss more next week.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. And also, like, it seems like there's a lot of very cool components that were a part of the COSA So to also hear about the vision about kind of integrating a lot of that work, and very exciting to hear.
Thank you for the extended time for that.
Thank you, absolutely. Additional questions, please email the board or email Tracy, the board clerk, and she'll put them in the board members. Emily Tracy are.
I have a lot of names.
I know. So, as do I, so that's not excuse for me either. So, we will move to our special presentations. We have two this evening. We always love hearing about our Morocco student trip, and they're up first.
Thank you very much.
Great, so thank you again for putting us on the agenda tonight. We wanted to share a little bit about our trip that we took this year. This year we traveled to Morocco during spring break because Ramadan fell during the February break, which is when we traditionally will go, and that's not a great time for visiting, although it would be quite fascinating, I think. We flew.
There's a slight delay.
Got it. That's why. I'm zooming through them, yeah. We flew out of JFK, as we always do, into Casablanca. And this year we took the northern route. So we went, we always spend some time in Fez, the capital city, and then in Rabat, the capital city, and then we continued on to Fez and Chefchaouen. We ended up pairing with a different partner school that we've also worked with in the past and spent a day with them, but it meant not doing homestays this year, but we'll continue partnering with the school when we go on the southern route that we typically will do homestays with. So this is our group. We had 24 wonderful students. It was a really lovely group. Kids were just really kind and supportive and flexible, and like hung out in different combinations, and like it was really a lovely group that we got to travel with this time. It's always lovely, but this was a particularly wonderful group. We had 33% of our students receive financial aid. 33% were first-time international travelers. 25% students of color. We always, for some reason, have more girls go on the trip than boys, but they are more responsible about getting, they're all represented here, more responsible about getting their applications in. I don't know what that is, but we're gonna have to look into that a little bit more. But this time we had 2 trans students for the first time, and that was interesting to see how that went in a society that does not always sort of accept that, and it was totally fine. It went really smoothly. There was really no problem at all with it. Before we leave, we always make a point of, introducing students to Moroccan culture and history and language, giving people a little bit of sort of a fighting chance in the markets a little bit with some words. And so we read the book Hope and Other Dangerous Pursuits by the Moroccan author Leila Leami, which is a really lovely look at different aspects of Moroccan culture and sort of politics and aspects of society that you wouldn't necessarily see as a tourist. We hosted guest speakers on Moroccan language and culture. We had a former IHS student come in and share with us and help us practice a little bit with Darija. We had a member of the Cornell's Arabic language outreach program come in as well. Students really enjoyed those times with students hearing about Moroccan culture, and also just a chance to work with college students and practice their language skills. This year we partnered with the British Town Academy, which is right outside of Rabat. It's an English language school that students would go to for like after school language classes or weekend language classes. So it's very helpful that they speak English fluently. we also engage with our community partners to try to expand access. So Ms. Crawford will talk about that a little bit. Ms. Crawford will talk about those community partnerships. We're really constantly trying to figure out new streams of money to make it accessible to all students and form partnerships. So students who might think, oh, that trip is not for me, there's no way my family could afford it, still go ahead and apply. And so we've created a bunch of partnerships around that specifically to make sure that those students do apply and they do get the support that they need to go. So tonight with me are Malik and Katie and Linnea, and they're going to share a little bit with you about their time in some of the different cities. And Malik is going to start off with the Hassan II Mosque, which is in Casablanca, and this is, we get off the flight after an overnight flight, and we jump right into it. So students look tired in these pictures. That's why.
Yeah, we didn't really board the plane until 12 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
It was like it was a big delay that we didn't really expect, but we were, I think we were prepared for a delay, and I think we still did good. And we just came off the plane. We were just really excited to just get started and really explore Morocco. So this is our first stop, which is the King Hassan II Mosque. It was incredible. It had it had architecture like I've never seen before. It was it was a very detailed design, which like in person it was just incredible. We had we started 2 tour guides who are pictured right on the bottom left. I forgot his name.
Yeah, Rashid is our partner who has always organized a trip with us. Yeah. Good.
So Rashid and what's the other one?
Nina.
Nina. Nina was the first time tour guide on the trip. She was amazing. She was
first time for us. Yeah.
Yeah, first time for us. Rashid has been on the trips a couple of times. Both of them were really amazing. They took us through the mosque and really told us the history about it. History, I would say, was the biggest part about Morocco. We really got to learn a lot of the history. Just rich in history and just lots of history to learn from. I'm a student who's interested in history, so it was a really informative tour of the mosque. So that's our group pictured in the mosque. The mosque is way bigger in person. Like huge. It was built on the ocean, and just amazing architecture. The girls, the females, were sort of required to wear the hijab, the veil. So it, like as a person who does wear it sort of daily and is a part of my identity, it was really, really nice to see my peers wear it alongside me. Was not alone. It was just unforgettable. Okay, so from the mosque we took a bus ride to Rabat, which is Morocco, the capital of Morocco. I would say this is personally my favorite part of the trip.
So we're gonna let Katie talk about this part though.
You guys, yeah.
Oh my bad. Okay, good. Continue on.
Sorry. Thank you, because this is my favorite part of the trip, and I would love to just talk about it. So Rabat had such a welcoming atmosphere. Again, a mix of history and also modern life that really made it stand out. Sort of in the middle of these cities, which we'll also get into as we dive more into it. But we got to visit what is called the Medina, meaning the older part of the city in Arabic. It was really interesting to walk through and experience. I've never experienced anything like that. Really, again, just really rich in history. I would say this is my favorite part about the trip because it was very, it's hard to explain. It was just amazing. Morocco in of itself is really tropical. It was really green. I would say Rabat had a lot of just plants everywhere and flowers, and just my personal favorite. Lots of nice people. We saw those are Roman ruins up at the top left, and the bottom left. Roman ruins are sort of like I would say everywhere, but like in Morocco, there was a lot of Roman ruins, and we had a tour guide take us through that and helped us learn more about Rabat in the older city of Rabat. We got to learn about the monarchy, the kings and queens. Just really, really nice.
So this was my personal favorite because I feel like traveling is something that like connects people more than anything, and not just who you're traveling with, but who you meet when you travel. And meeting these people was just like amazing, like connecting with the girls there and just like finding out what you have in common and everything is just so great. They kind of like rolled their eyes at like the touristy camels, but that was also super fun. And then they presented to us, we played games with them, just connecting. This was very like meaningful for all of us just to like connect with the students there, and like they were our age, so they were kind of at the same stage of life as us, and like yeah, so that was not to mention we were on a beautiful beach and everything, so it was pretty. And then so from Rabat we go to Fez. And Fez is where we went in the markets and we learned more about the history. And this was super fun. We just like learned about all different processes. We ate amazing food. We saw more incredible architecture and just really connected more with the group. I'd say this was like the most fun day, like within our group, just walking around and shopping and like helping each other barter and everything, which is something that I had like pretty much never done before and thought it was so much fun. But yeah, just connecting with the group was really amazing.
So after that, we went to Chefchaouen, which is up in the mountains, also known as the Blue City, because as you can see from the picture below, everything there is painted blue. So it was gorgeous. And you know, top picture there, we hiked up to a Spanish mosque up on a hill. And I think one of the coolest parts about being in Chefchaouen was you hear the call to prayer a couple times a day, and it would come from all the mosques all around the area, and it would just echo through the hills. And that was like nothing I've ever experienced before. And so while in Chefchaouen, again, we toured around the Medina and learned about the history of the place. Tried a lot of great local foods. Yeah, including there's a Moroccan soup, vegetable soup that we have with many meals as an appetizer type thing. It was very good.
Yeah, Moroccan soup is amazing. They also serve tea with everything. Just food that we had never tried before that we just all love. Like no one, I heard no one.
So I brought in a couple of quotes from the post-trip survey here. Cam shared that he enjoyed the chance to meet other students his age from another country and learn a little bit more about their life. Camille was saying that this was genuinely one of her favorite trips she's ever been on, learned and experienced so many amazing things, opened her eyes to how beautiful Islamic culture is, how diverse a country, both geographically and culturally, Morocco is. She's still in contact. Oftentimes the students will continue their contact and relationship and communication with the students that they meet in Morocco. It's a very, very friendly culture, like just very outgoing and friendly. Jonah really enjoyed Chefchaouen, saying that it was beautiful, but really that spending time with everybody was his favorite part of the trip. It really was, the group really bonded. It was really a lovely group on this trip.
So it falls to me to give an overview of some of the successes and challenges. This year, the Morocco Club was awarded the AFIS Tony Cook Grant.
We also worked to develop the new partnerships, including a partnership with Cornell STEP program. So STEP is now sponsoring one of our student travelers, and our longtime partner sponsors 2 other travelers. It's one of the ways that we are actively seeking to recruit students of color to attend the Morocco trip. We also partnered with IPEI to develop a donation portal to support our scholarship fund to help make the trip accessible to students who otherwise would not be able to go. We also engaged in some really important conversations around norming for international programs with Ithaca College's Office of International Program. It just helped us to figure out ways that our program already aligns with the practices of our neighbor institutions, and some ways that we can shift our practices to align better with their procedures and protocols for international travel. Some of the challenges we faced this year, we had a shortened timeline. The trip approval for our trip didn't happen until into the fall, and so we lost some fundraising time over the summer. We also had an increase in ticket prices, which is just part of the increased fuel cost. So the expenses for our trip were a little higher this year, and the fundraising was a little lower than it's been in past years. We also faced some challenges with visa applications. We had hoped to bring our Moroccan partners to visit us for the first time, and we put a lot of work into making that possible. And then the visa, under the current administration, the visas were not attainable, and so they were unable to come. We also had some issues with bringing international students from our district abroad this year for the same reasons. So those are some of the challenges that were new to our group. I wanted to share some numbers with you. Our students worked incredibly hard. They fundraised $6,602, mostly through leaf raking and yard work. That fundraising was distributed amongst all of our students. It brought our trip costs down somewhat, and the cost for students, we've worked really hard since the trip started in 2015. We have not yet raised the cost per traveler despite rising costs. We've kept the cost to our students at under $2,500. And we handed out over $15,000 in scholarship money to students to help make this trip possible this year. So we were really proud of that number. We wanted to give a thanks and a shout out to some of our local partners, to GIAC and STEP for sponsoring our travelers, for the Cornell Arabic Language School for helping to facilitate language workshops, and to IPEI and some of our local sponsors, including the botanist, to help to support our scholarship program. Last but not least, we want to thank all of you for your continued support of the Morocco Club and international travel programs. And we really appreciate you giving us your time this evening to hear our students talk about how meaningful the trip has been to them.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for our travelers?
I have no questions, but thank you for sharing the information.
Thank you so much.
Thanks once again. That would bring us to our agenda item 11.2, which is the climate action plan presentation / proposal.
So we're going to start out with students tonight, and so I think we're going to do the same kind of thing. All the students who run tonight by the chair here. Students have to prepare statements, and then the sustainability advocates for going on.
I'd like to hand out these are some statements we got from students. Across IHS. I think there's enough for everybody, so I'm going to pass this around.
Hi everyone, my name is Beta Goldrubber. I'm a junior at IHS. And I'd like to say that although sometimes it feels like it will never end, high school is only a tiny fraction of our lives. We have limited time as students in this district, but that doesn't mean we cannot have a big impact. Despite the fact that most of us will graduate before we get to see the immediate benefits of the climate action plan, during these past few years, we have dedicated many hours, club meetings, and evenings to writing, advocating for, and revising the climate action plan, because we hope to create a more sustainable district and community. This can be true for all of you board members too. I urge you to use your time on this Board of Ed to make a change that will last beyond all of our years in ICSD by passing the climate action plan.
Hello, my name is Noelle Hayes and I'm a 10th grader at Ithaca High School. I am passionate about climate action because I hope to create a better future for upcoming generations of students and children alike. Children have been displaced and harmed for years, but the recently negative impacts such as flooding and increasing temperatures have been on the rise. This topic is personal to me as I have 3 younger siblings, the youngest being only 7 years old, who I love dearly and hope to work towards in a cleaner and greener future for them and all affected children. My name is Zoe Wang, and I'm a 10th grader at IHS. Building the climate action plan is important because ICSD has committed itself to action towards sustainability through the climate resolution. But passing the climate action plan is also important to upholding ICSD's commitments to being anti-racist and providing equal opportunities to all students. Climate change disproportionately affects people of color and those with a lower socioeconomic status. Climate change can affect these groups in various ways. Black and underprivileged communities have harder times preparing for and recovering from natural disasters. Children, and Black children specifically, are at greater risk for climate change and pollution-related health risks, including mental health. Ithaca has taken steps to counteract these disadvantages by passing Justice 50, requiring 50% of Ithaca spending on infrastructure upgrades in the Ithaca Green New Deal to go to the most affected and at-risk communities. One of these is the Southside community, a historically Black community in Ithaca, which has been designated a flood risk zone by the federal government. Ithaca is taking steps to protect our communities, and ICSD needs to take similar ones to help underprivileged students living in these communities. As climate activists, we greatly appreciate ICSD's support of students of color who are more affected by climate change, and we hope you will continue your support for students of color by supporting the climate action plan.
My name is Bryson Hill. I'm a sophomore at IHS. The Ithaca Climate Justice Alliance is very appreciative of ICSD's consideration for climate justice issues, as well as the initiatives thus far and the many to come. We are especially grateful and excited for the recent passing of the capital project, including a geothermal heating and cooling system for IHS and Boyd. We are also grateful for the support for student action and inclusion in groups such as the Climate Action Plan Advisory Council. This resolution means a lot to me as a person of color. Communities like mine are affected at greater rates. ICSD needs to pass a climate action plan to support students like me and communities like mine.
Thank you. My name is Asher Kologi, and I'm a junior at Ithaca High School. For years, I've been fighting for passing this district climate action plan. I remember when I first became involved in climate action in just 6th grade. I really enjoyed being outdoors, and I was developing a real love of nature. And at this time, I was really starting to understand the scale of the climate crisis and how so many of the natural spaces we love are at risk of being totally lost. This is why I initially joined the Climate Action Club at Boyd Middle School. And it was there where I learned about how to fight for climate justice and slowly expanded my understanding of the climate crisis. Since then, my knowledge of the climate crisis has only grown. I've participated in rallies, protests, and even attended lobbying in Albany. I've done work across Ithaca and across the school to fight for climate justice. But as I've become so involved, my motivation has become so much more than simply to protect the planet itself. Although it's so very important that we protect our natural world from climate change, we need to recognize how it's affecting humanity on a deeper basis. Climate change is so much more than an environmental struggle. It's a class struggle. And the simple fact is that climate change disproportionately affects disadvantaged communities, both in our own city and across the world. The fact is that almost everyone here is in a privileged position in regard to climate change. Most of us have air conditioning and home insurance, protect against intensifying weather. All of us have a reliable source of food, no matter what type of year it is. And most of us have livelihoods that will stay very stable in the next few years. Most of the world, and much of our very own city, is not so fortunate. We have a duty being on the other end of this crisis to assist those in need and to use our power to protect them from the worst of this crisis. To do any less would be a violation of the principles this district claims to stand by. Today, the Climate Action Plan is our best way of facing the climate crisis head on, using the relatively few resources at our disposal to make a disproportionate impact. Any feared costs or potential setbacks are far outweighed by the impact this plan will have on future Ithacans and on disadvantaged students living across the district. This plan will also have reaching impacts far beyond Ithaca itself. By passing the Climate Action Plan, ICSD will prove itself a leader in the state to pass a sweeping climate action plan and will prove to schools across the nation that the climate crisis is not beyond our reach and that combating it is feasible and a necessary for schools. It is for these reasons that I thank you for this proposal, and I look forward to seeing our long-deserved policies finally be put into action.
We're gonna, sustainability advocates from the districts across the district are gonna now introduce the climate action plan, the revised climate action plan. So a year ago, we presented an initial draft, and I'm gonna just start off by saying, well, first of all, my name is Armin Neering. I'm a librarian here at high school, and we are living through a fascinating, pivotal moment in human history. So climate scientists and data scientists have inundated us with alarming and incontrovertible evidence that human activity, in particular the extraction and burning of fossil fuels, is the primary cause of our current climate crisis. Climate change is already having devastating effects on people around the world, and these impacts are disproportionately affecting, as you heard from students, vulnerable populations. Meanwhile, we are in the midst of a seismic energy transition and electrotech revolution. Prediction models for global warming are predicated on how quickly and how effectively we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So through the work of the students and staff, in May of 2025, we presented our proposed climate action plan to the Board of Education for consideration. And as a result, the Board of Ed established a Climate Action Plan Advisory Council with students, teachers, administrators, board members, and community partners, all stakeholders, right? We met monthly to review and revise the Climate Action Plan. We had at least 7 meetings. What we present to you today is the result of our efforts. Now we'll provide you with an overview of the 4 sections of the CAP. The operations component of the CAP will help to meet the urgent need to mitigate the crisis. Proven viable solutions abound, including renewable energy generation, battery energy storage systems, electric vehicles, induction cooktops, other energy efficient appliances, geothermal HVAC systems, heat pumps, building energy retrofitting, the list goes on, active transportation, improved waste stream management, etc. We're delighted that we are beginning to see meaningful action happening here in our district, from geothermal projects and acquisition of EV buses to the transition to LED lighting. So the purpose of the operations component of the CAP is to make sure that we continue to explore all options for reducing our district's carbon footprint in all aspects of facilities operations, maintenance, construction, and transportation. We believe that the operations component of the CAP will keep us focused on addressing our greenhouse gas emissions effectively and in a timely manner. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to the Healthy Schools folks who are going to talk about that.
Thank you. My name is Carol Hoffman, and I'm Emily Uppert, and we're of the Healthy Schools component. The Healthy Schools component is like a wide and complex net that everyone from students to staff somehow plays a part of and interacts with sustainability goals. No act is too small, from 4th graders who are creating 3 Sisters gardens at Northeast, or 6th graders who are aware of like, oh, we need to turn off the lights because of conserving energy, or even like principal advising staff about how to not wish cycle and to share other resources together. Healthy schools is about everybody playing a part. And these are some of the elements.
So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of these 8 elements. So for Routes to School, we would like students and staff to have safe and sustainable ways to get to our buildings and our school gardens. We have, we would have a vision of a garden at every school, or at least an opportunity to have a garden at every school, whether it's a sensory garden, a vegetable garden, a meditation garden. Robin Wall Kimmerer says in her book that if you want to change the world, plant a garden. We want students to have access to natural areas and learn about stewardship. Everything from sharing school resources, waste reduction, and energy consumption looks like students and staff having a say in what that looks like in the buildings, making it transparent, preventing things like throwing out perfectly good resources at the end of the school year just because we're trying to get out of the buildings quickly, to finding a system that we can share those with each other throughout our district. Mental health is so important. That connects up with all of those things, including school gardens, access to natural areas, and clubs like some of the students you heard here talk tonight, to give them an outlet to share and participate and make changes in the world around them. And then connecting up with our food and nutrition systems. We have an amazing program through Chef Ann in our district, and we want to keep that growing. We would like to bring in food from the gardens, as well as continuing to make our system more sustainable in the cafeteria.
And just to sum up, the healthy schools component improves the physical and mental well-being of students and staff through learning and increasing engagement, promoting healthy behaviors, and ultimately benefiting the earth, the students' lifelong success, staff's lifelong success, and even taxpayers.
I'm Cindy Kramer, and I teach social studies at Boynton Middle School. And I'm sure everyone was enjoying the sunshine today. And I always feel like this is a very heavy topic, but it's because that we love the sunshine and that we are centered as a district on students and the future that it's such an imperative that we're talking about this. So as an educational institution that's really focused on preparing students for the future, we really think sustainability is essential so that there is a future for breathing for them in the future. The education component, as part of the action plan that we're proposing, is envisioned in response to the concerns and the urgency that we hear students express, and as you heard today. This is being responsive to what we hear, and this is being supportive of our students and our community in general. The plan represents a commitment to empowering students with an understanding of the climate crisis, its impacts, and how they can take informed action to help mitigate it. When teaching last week about climate action as part of our civic action component and the history of climate change in a social studies class, it was really exciting for me to be able to announce to the students the recent proposition that passed that will be shifting us off of fossil fuels to geothermal energy for Boynton and Ithaca High School. And as I made that announcement, of course, not everyone, but there were these smiles and glimmers in their eyes, which of course really was very heartwarming. I can't underestimate how important seeing district policy, district actions, district education, how all of those together are statements to our students about our genuine concern for their future. We are a big institution in our community, and our actions, whether they be in the classroom, on the policy level, capital projects or budgets, together, they all come to really creating the best sustainable future we can. So climate education is a recognition of what students will need going forward. So I'll just comment on each of those 4 components. Of course, as an education institution, curricular development is key. And we see this as an integration and not as an add-on. This is looking at causes and evidence of the climate crisis and providing viable solutions. I had a recent assignment in which my students had an opportunity to reflect on some of the climate solutions they had been learning about. And I was really taken by how many students commented on things such as, I didn't know something could be done. This gives me hope for the future. The word hope is used over and over again once they see the demonstration that change is possible. So going forward, we propose also a developmentally appropriate approach to this, which starts with connecting with nature. And I think that you'll see all of our components are very interconnected, but whether it be a young child or any of us, that we all find that nature is at the core of what we're trying to protect and preserve for the future. We propose also that it may be integrated in a variety of ways and will complement the content of the current curriculum. Next, we propose professional development will be necessary to engage teachers in exploring a multitude of approaches to integrating climate education with the sustainability lens. This year, with support from our district and especially Mary Grover, we were able to offer some opportunities for professional development this year and found it to be very rewarding and worthwhile, and we hope to continue to build on that. The recent decision that we're all aware of, the Board of Regents of New York State to include interdisciplinary climate education as part of the portrait of the graduate. With that, professional development will be needed. And I really challenge us to think about ICSD as we feel for the Climate Action Plan, be the first in New York State to have one. I think we can also become a model district on how to implement this new graduation requirement. Building on our current connections with the community, we already have a variety of ways that we're interacting with our community agencies, and they are eager to increase this collaboration and have many resources that will enhance what is possible. And finally, and maybe most important, and I want to thank our students who shared tonight, is that engaging in climate action within both academic and extracurricular settings, students will develop their skills and play an important role in sustainability initiatives. When students take action to help mitigate the climate crisis, they gain an agency, and we hope will increase their civic participation in the future. We believe that educating about how to create a more sustainable world is paramount to the purpose of education in today's global society. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Brumberg, and I'm a science teacher and the sustainability advocate at LACS. And I'm going to talk a moment about the structure component, though it's the first in your document. It ties everything together, so we have to talk about it at the end. So sustainable world is possible. Humans have mostly unwittingly gotten us to this precarious place that we find ourselves. And it's humans who will get us out of this situation by thoughtful and proactive choices. It's imperative that all institutions, including school districts, accelerate the pace of climate action to meet this moment. The structure component of the CAP is designed to keep our boat pointed toward the important work that we need to do. Like our equity lens works towards important goals in our district, a sustainability lens, if shared by all of us, can help us set and achieve goals that are important for our planet, our community, our staff, and students. The structure component asks each stakeholder group to adopt a sustainability lens in the regular work of our district and in consideration of the issues that arise in our district. Life is complex. The sustainability lens is not the only lens, but our climate action plan acknowledges that it is a critical and an important lens. The structure component brings awareness and shared responsibility of all stakeholders, giving them the duty and the opportunity to work together towards sustainability goals. We can lead by example. We can listen to our students who are urging us to to address climate change with meaningful action. This CAP gives us the path to do the good work that we want and need to do. We hope you agree with us. We hope that you will include it in your voting meeting agenda on June 9th. We urge you to adopt this climate action plan. And we're happy to field any questions now or in the intervening weeks.
Board members, questions?
Thank you for the work you're doing. I also want to, in particular, around curriculum. I really appreciate. I think that sometimes we as adults can put our fears on children, and I'm very scared for the climate. But I really appreciated you, like the focus on appreciation of nature, especially for little kids. Just wanted to share that. I was curious. I guess I'm just curious about generally an action plan. This is my first time experiencing an action plan on the board. Like, is this? How would that actually function out for like logistics? It's not a binding set of commitments, but it's directional. Or
wasn't this the main crux of the conversation that we had? Should I? You? Oh, please. We can do this all day long. When the sustainability advocates and our students came to us last year with a climate action plan, it was ambitious, without question, and very well done. And my concern at that time was, what does that actually mean if we adopt it as it was written then? Because I did feel like it did lock the district into certain financial responsibilities or commitments, right? Saying we do this. I think the work that has been done, and I take absolutely no credit. I was not there for the second semester. My teaching schedule changed. But folks were worked diligently to keep the heart and the core of the climate action plan and modify the language slightly, which says, while doing this next step, we will keep this under consideration at all times. So it does not lock the district in, but it does require us to keep it at the forefront of any particular budgetary vote or facilities vote, curriculum vote, health vote. So the idea would be it'd be sort of an undergrounding framework for the decisions that we make in the area. So that's as I'm seeing it, but I'd ask folks to please add to that.
I want to say, I think each of those components have a lot of intentions and goals. We didn't go over all the goals tonight. They're in the document, and we hope you'll review those before June 9th. But the structure section does specify some things, such as forming a council that will be renewed each year, department leaders, central administration, building leaders, embracing the sustainability lens. And what that looks like is for all of us to consider and evolve. But the idea, and that there would be an annual report reflection and next steps on an annual basis. So it's a framework more than a detailed list of commitments, other than the broad goals that are stated.
And I just wanted to add that the advisory council, I think, it was a brilliant idea because what it allowed us to do is to like slow down, as you pointed out, and carefully analyze all of our statements, our goals for each individual element, and then adjust them for the reality of how school districts work, which is something that we are not really as privy to as the board is. And it was so great that we had 3 board members who participated on a regular basis in the advisory council and helped us to reframe the language, as well as an ex officio board member who's going to be a board member once again. And so this really meant a lot to me, and I think to all of us, to have this really inclusive organizational structure, and student voices were imperative as well.
Like Armin is saying, I think that was something that we kept in mind as we were working on the language, especially board members that were participating. Just to remember to sort of look through the lens, of this when we're doing different things with the district. So I really appreciate all the hard work. I mean, I participated too, but not appreciating my work, but appreciating your work. No, it's really great. A lot of people put a lot of time and energy into it and work very hard, especially in choosing the language, which was a large part of the discussions. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to voting yes on this at the next meeting.
And the design was to both share it with the board and with the community, and then to bring it on to the January, no, wrong date, not there yet, June 9th meeting for us to vote on, but to also give board members time to read it, to continue to ask questions, to reach out to any of the sustainable advocates and our students. But the goal was, right, how can we do this work that we know needs to be done? And that's where it came from for me. We know it needs to be done. Now what? Now how do we make it happen? And I think even in the creation of the advisory council, a number of good things have already come from it, right? And Armin, I think I'll ask you to share with board members, and I don't know, I believe you're the controller of it, but there's a phenomenal library of resources that has been created, right? Of benchmarking schools and of collecting data on the kinds of power equipment that we have, and what are some of the other curricular options that we've been doing in partnership with the city. And so there's a whole, for lack of a better word, cache of information that is a lot to get through, but it also demonstrates the amount of work that folks have put into it that's available.
That's accurate, and then also an inventory of equipment, transportation, vehicles, etc. And also there's spin-off things that happen as a result of this. For example, Aaron Shear, our new facilities director, attended all of our meetings since he was brought onto this position. And as a result of that, just one concrete example was there's a courtyard at Ithaca High School, the Anderson Courtyard, also known as G Courtyard, that was overgrown and no one could access it. And he played a leading role in partnering with students to clear it out. Students volunteered lots and lots of hours, and now that space gets used every single day during lunchtime. There's students lining up waiting for the doors to be unlocked so that they can be in this beautiful meditative space with, you know, a bird's nest in the tree and things like, you know, these kinds of things are actually happening as a result of this larger organization happening.
I just also acknowledge that this is not the beginning for our district. This is a continuation. There's so much stuff that's happened over the years at each of the elements that we've mentioned. And that the nature piece, like we all need to be nurtured by that. And we also want to bring joy and action and leadership of students into whatever we do, because that will make us resilient.
So thank you. We'll make sure it's on the June 9th meeting, and we'll ask board members to send any questions directly, or we'll collect a list of questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With the modifications to the agenda, this, for the most part, concludes the voting meeting of today. But I will entertain motions to enter into the board soon.
Move that the board enter into executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 1051 Act. Discuss matters leading to the identification of a particular student, matters relating to the employment history of a particular person, and matters leading to the employment of a particular person.
And I would add superintendent value.
And superintendent.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Questions, conversations? All in favor? Thank you very much. We are done for the evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've already